Hi everybody, it's Julia, your trusted travel expert, helping you find that je ne sais quoi wherever you are in the world. And today I am in a bit of a unique place in the world, and I have just had the most wonderful trip. So I wanted to tell you all about why you should consider Uganda for a African destination in your portfolio or your upcoming vacation plans. So I wanted to do this video from one of the beautiful lodges that we stayed at, but I was always so busy and or tired from being so busy that I never found the time. So instead I'm coming to you from the lovely little boutique hotel that I'm staying at in Entebbe. And which is fitting actually, because Entebbe is where you fly in and out of. The airport code is EBB. And Entebbe was the colonial capital of Uganda when the Brits were in control for about the first 50 years of the 1900s. But Kampala is now the capital of Uganda, and that is a very big, very bustling, choked with traffic kind of city, and probably not really worth visiting. But Entebbe is much smaller, much more manageable, and much more attractive, I would say. And from Entebbe, there's all kinds of things you can do. Lake Victoria is, we're on the border, or on the coast of Lake Victoria, and Lake Victoria is the second largest lake in the world. So like Kenya and Tanzania are on the other side of the lake, but they take like hours and hours and hours to get to by boat. So there's lots of boating excursions you can do. There's lots of different islands you can go visit. There's the Ngamba chimp sanctuary that is, a home for orphan chimps off in Lake Victoria, but unfortunately they've had very high water levels, 50-year floods in Uganda this rainy season, so we weren't able to visit that this time, but it's definitely supposed to be fantastic. Instead, we went to the Mbamba, I think that's correct, swamp, and there's a wetlands. A lot of Uganda is actually covered with wetlands, and we went to that wetlands and cruised around. It was beautiful, saw all kinds of beautiful birds, and saw the very famous and very endangered and very rare shoebill stork, which lives there, and it's this prehistoric looking stork. It's crazy, but lots of really cool things. Just north of Kampala and Entebbe is a town that we skipped called Jinja, and that's like sort of the adventure capital of Uganda. But really, when you come to Uganda, you're coming to get out of the towns and get out into nature, because they have some of the most beautiful and diverse national parks and wildlife that I've ever experienced, frankly. So we went first, not all the way to the north of the country, but the northwest of the country. And all along the western border of the country, sorry, a plane is taking off. Along the west side of Uganda is the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And so you would think that would mean that the west side of the country is like off limits, but that is not the case. I was within eyesight of the border of the DRC, never had any issues. But just so you know, that's their neighbor to the west. And their neighbor to the southwest is Rwanda. That's like tucked in before you get to Kenya and Tanzania. So anyway, we went to the northwest to Murchison Falls National Park, and that is famous for these huge waterfalls. That's the Nile River making its way north towards Egypt. And it's the most powerful waterfall on the Nile, I think. And it's just really crazy because the Nile is very wide, and it hits this chasm that's very narrow and like explodes down that chasm. So you go to Murchison Falls to see that, but also you go to Murchison Falls for game drives, because we saw just these pieces of land that looked like the Garden of Eden, and they were just gorgeous, rolling green. Everything is green in Uganda, everything. We saw jillions of giraffe, beautiful dark Rothschild, or they're called Nubian giraffes now, elephant, we saw cats, we saw a few lions, and a few leopards up in trees in Murchison, and just had spectacular experiences. And you usually stay on the river with views overlooking one of the Niles. The Victoria Nile flows from Lake Victoria here in Entebbe up to Murchison Falls and goes into Lake Albert. And then from Lake Albert, the Albertine Nile flows out up north towards Sudan, where it becomes the White Nile and then the Blue Nile. Anyway, So you get to cruise on the Nile and have your African Queen experience and see hippos and crocs and all kinds of seabirds or fishing birds and all that good stuff. So then after Murchison Falls, we flew. We took a flight over Lake Albert and flew down to the center of the country. And that is this really, really beautiful, again, very green and very lush, but in a very different way, very hilly area. It combines Kabale National Park, Kabale Forest National Park, and the Toro Lakes region, which is all these crater lakes. They had volcanic activity, and so there are all these little lakes that are in craters all around in there, and it's just beautiful, and it's so hilly, and you come around a corner and all of a sudden there's a little secret lake down in the bottom, and incredibly lush forests. And in Kabale Forest, we got to do chimpanzee tracking, and that was really exciting. Much like gorilla tracking, you meet up, get it all sorted out, suited up, and you go for a hike through the deep jungle, and then all of a sudden you hear the screams, and the hoots, and the hollers of the chimpanzees, and your guide is like, "Come on, we found them," and you just see all these beautiful faces, beautiful black furry bodies, swinging from vines, crawling down trees, sitting around grooming each other. And you get to spend about an hour with chimps, and chimpanzee tracking was not on my radar. I didn't realize it was something you could do in Uganda, and it is awesome. So then after Kabale National Park, we went down south just a little bit, past the town of Kasese, which is going to have an international airport sometime in the near future. Right now it's just a little landing strip where we landed. But from Kasese, we drove down to Queen Elizabeth National Park. And Queen Elizabeth National Park is a really interesting and unique, I think it's the largest. I forget if I think Murchison Falls is the largest, and maybe Queen Elizabeth is the second largest. But it's this huge swath of beautiful land from Kabale down south, alongside two more lakes. They're all like royal names. So I think it's Lake George. Lake Albert flows through the Kazinga Channel to Lake George. And so Queen Elizabeth National Park is sort of around those two lakes. And once again, incredibly diverse, beautiful safari game drives. We met with the Predator Project, who is tracking and keeping up with the big cats there, and got to see some beautiful cats there. The interesting thing about Queen Elizabeth National Park is that there were towns already established, villages, when they established the park. And so they couldn't kick all those people out, or they chose not to for whatever reason. And so there's lots of more animal-human conflict happening in that park. So there's lots of, like this Predator Project. We saw a baby elephant snared. So especially after COVID, after the pandemic, poaching has really gone up without tourists in the park and stuff like that. But we had wonderful game drives. We had yet again another cruise experience, which I was not even looking forward to, but we saw elephants climbing up hills and chasing water buffalo, and water buffalo lounging in the water next to hippo, and elephants swimming, and again, thousands of seabirds, water birds. I mean, just really, really, really cool experiences there. We stayed on the Moya Peninsula of Queen Elizabeth National Park. And then south of Queen Elizabeth National Park is the big gold star, the big highlight, and that's Bwindi Impenetrable Forest National Park. And that's where the mountain gorillas live, and that's sort of why everyone comes to Uganda. But I want to tell you not to skip all the other stuff, because that's where you get all the diversity of the game. Now, down in Bwindi, I fell in love with Bwindi. It's a very mountainous area, and they've planted a lot of tea plantations around the forest as a buffer crop to keep the gorillas where they belong in their protected forest rather than down in the communities. And we got to meet with Dr. Gladys, who is an absolute hero in this country. She's created a nonprofit that combines public health with animal conservation, because they really go hand in hand. Because gorillas and chimpanzees that also live down there, because they're so genetically similar to us, we can pass on our diseases. So not only COVID, which is an issue right now, but scabies, flu, cold, anything like that. And so her organization is really working with communities to get them involved and to make them understand. And it's just really, really cool, the work that that organization is doing, and the the other organizations that have grown up around Bwindi. Like, we spent a lot of time with another nonprofit called Ride for a Woman, which is a women's empowerment group and that does fabulous things. And I will talk more about that later. But it was just, Bwindi was amazing. The gorilla trekking was amazing. It can be extremely challenging. We sent our less fit group to the easiest to reach gorillas, but sadly, the easiest to find gorillas got in a fight with another gorilla group, and so they ran away. And so our least fit group ended up hiking for a total of 7 hours. But like, my group that day only hiked about an hour in and an hour out, and we got to spend our hour with the gorillas. And that is just something really special, because when the silverback basically does anything, you take notice, because they are massive. And the mothers with the babies, they're having a bit of a baby boom right now in Bwindi. So we saw all kinds of babies, and they were just, the mothers and the babies is so tender and so sweet and just adorable. And the babies, are like just full of personality. And I actually chose to do 2 days of gorilla tracking, which I'm very happy I did, because the first day I was sort of so breathless and so amazed and so running around frantic to try and get photos that it's not that I didn't enjoy the experience, but it was just a lot, and it was a rush. So I'm really glad I had the second day to have a second experience, see more of them. We tracked a different family. The second day it had a week-old baby, which was just adorable. And, it was a totally different experience. And so I do recommend doing 2 days of gorilla trekking. And good news is that Bwindi has a ton of beautiful accommodation. I will say that the accommodation is not always extremely beautiful and amazing in Uganda, but they do have some amazing, especially down in Bwindi, they have some amazing properties. And then from Bwindi, we flew back here to Entebbe. And that's been my last 2 weeks. And I just can't say enough about Uganda. It's really a gorgeous country, super diverse, so much to offer. But what really has struck me, and what I might get choked up about, are the people. They are so wonderful. I mean, we drove through all kinds of little villages with nothing. I mean, super poor. There's 80% unemployment right now in Uganda. I mean, the pandemic has hit them really hard, because tourism is their second biggest industry. It's something like 20% of their GDP normally. So they haven't seen tourists in months and months and months. And we just, all the millions of, people just sitting on the side of the street waving at us as we went by. Little kids come running out saying, "Oh, hello, we love you, welcome, hi, hello, Mizungu, I love you." Just the people are so lovely. All of the people that are guides, our rangers, the staff at the hotels, I mean, everyone has just been so warm and so lovely and so generous with their time, and so happy to have us here. And it's just, I can't say enough. I mean, I was crying in the charter plane today because we're leaving, and I'm really, Uganda has really touched me. And so I will be proselytizing about how great Uganda is for a long time. So I hope that I've given you a taste. Get ready for lots of footage. I had a great camera with me, and so I have beautiful photos of all the amazing wildlife we saw, and hopefully some of the beautiful and wonderful people we saw too. So that's it for this week, and I will text you next week. Bye.